If there is one detail that still unsettles researchers, it is this. Neanderthals lived through repeated Ice Age winters across Europe and Western Asia, with limited, intermittent use of fire, not no fire, but far less than modern humans rely on in comparable conditions. Hearths are patchy in the archaeological record, sometimes absent for entire occupation layers, yet Neanderthals remained in cold environments for hundreds of thousands of years. This forces an uncomfortable conclusion. Cold survival was not built around constant flames. It was built into their bodies, their behavior, and the way they structured daily life. If you want to understand real cold adaptation, this is where the conversation stops being romantic and starts becoming technical. They began with anatomy that was not accidental. Neanderthal bodies were compact, broad-chested and heavily muscled, with shorter limbs relative to torso size. This reduced surface area and slowed heat loss. Their nasal cavities were large and complex, warming cold air before it reached the lungs. This is not speculative. These traits align perfectly with Bergmann's and Allen's rules for cold climate adaptation. While modern humans can't change anatomy, the principle still applies. Minimizing exposed surface area, keeping extremities insulated, and protecting airways are foundational steps in cold survival. Shelter use focused on stability rather than warmth. Neanderthals favored caves, rock shelters, and deeply sheltered valleys. These environments maintain relatively stable temperatures year-round, often hovering just above freezing even when outside conditions plunge far lower. A cave without fire is still warmer than open ground in winter. Neanderthals selected sites that reduced wind exposure and temperature swings, which matters more than raw heat output. A practical modern parallel is choosing terrain wisely. Wind protection and thermal stability can matter more than having a large fire that burns out overnight. Clothing played a greater role than fire. Wear patterns on stone tools and cut marks on animal bones strongly suggest systematic hide processing. Neanderthals were not draping skins casually. They were shaping, softening, and fitting them. Fur orientation mattered. Multiple layers mattered. Clothing reduced reliance on fire by trapping metabolic heat generated by their powerful bodies. A modern survivalist can apply this directly by prioritizing layered insulation and wind-blocking outer layers before worrying about heat sources. Their sleeping strategies reveal how fire scarcity was managed. Neanderthals likely slept in tightly grouped arrangements, using shared body heat as a thermal resource. Ground insulation came from plant matter, hides, and possibly moss, which, retains warmth even when it's a bit damp. Fire, when present, was used to heat the area before sleep, not necessarily maintained all night. This reduced fuel demands while still raising baseline temperatures. The step-by-step lesson here is clear. Warm the shelter first, insulate thoroughly, then let insulation do the work, rather than feeding a fire continuously. Diet compensated for limited external heat. Neanderthals consumed extremely high-calorie diets rich in fat and protein, particularly during winter. Stable isotope analysis shows heavy reliance on large herbivores like mammoth, woolly rhinoceros, and bison. Fat metabolism produces sustained internal heat, turning the body into a furnace that, honestly, does not require wood or flame. Anyone spending nights in cold environments today can replicate this principle by increasing caloric intake, especially fats, before rest. Activity timing mattered. Neanderthals likely structured days to ensure elevated body temperature before periods of inactivity. Hunting, toolmaking, and movement occurred during daylight hours, with rest following when metabolic heat was already high. This mirrors modern cold weather protocols that emphasize going to sleep warm, not trying to generate heat once already cold. This is not intuition, it is survival logic learned the hard way. Fire, when available, was used strategically rather than constantly. Evidence suggests Neanderthals may have struggled to reliably start fires, relying instead on maintaining embers or opportunistically capturing natural fire. This scarcity, really forced efficiency. Fire was used for cooking, drying hides, and short-term warming, not as a permanent heat source. The takeaway here is discipline. Fire becomes a tool rather than a crutch. What emerges from this picture is not a species limping through cold conditions but one optimized for them. Neanderthals did not need constant fire because their survival system reduced the need for it at every level. Anatomy conserved heat, shelters stabilized temperature, clothing trapped warmth, diet fueled internal heat, social behavior minimized exposure, fire filled gaps rather than carrying the entire load. For historians, this reframes Neanderthals as sophisticated cold specialists rather than primitive holdovers. For survivalists, it delivers a humbling reminder: heat sources fail, fuel runs out, bodies, insulation, and planning are what remain. If you want more deep, unsentimental looks at how ancient humans actually survived, subscribe to Strange History, share this with someone who still thinks fire solved everything, and keep digging. The cold has always respected preparation more than flames.